The eviction notice trembled in Brett Mitchell's calloused hands as he sat in his truck outside Riverside Coffee in downtown Nashville. The words blurred together through his tears. 30 days to vacate. 3 months of unpaid rent. Legal action pending. His 10-year-old daughter Hannah's medical bills had destroyed everything he'd spent years building. The dashboard clock read 6:58. His blind date was supposed to start at 7. His sister Monica had begged him for weeks to meet her friend's cousin, someone she swore was kind and genuine. Brett had finally agreed just to stop the nagging, but now, staring at the paper that meant he and Hannah would be homeless in a month, going inside felt ridiculous. What was the point? What did he have to offer anyone? His phone buzzed. Monica's text read, "Please go in. Just try. For Hannah." Brett's chest tightened. Everything was for Hannah. The second job he'd taken last year. The overtime that never seemed enough. The hospital visits when her appendix had ruptured and complications kept her admitted for 2 weeks. He'd used all his sick days, then unpaid leave, and finally his boss had called him into the office with sympathetic eyes and termination papers. That was 3 months ago. The severance barely covered 1 month's rent. The second month he'd borrowed from his parents, who had their own struggles. The third month, nothing. Now this notice, printed on official letterhead with a lawyer's signature at the bottom. He almost started the truck. Almost drove away. But something, maybe exhaustion or desperation or the memory of Hannah's smile this morning when he'd promised her things would get better, made him fold the notice, shove it in his glove compartment, and step out into the warm Tennessee evening. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. People chatted at small tables, laughing, normal lives happening all around him. Brett felt like a ghost walking through their world. He scanned the room, looking for someone sitting alone, checking their phone, waiting. He spotted her near the window. Long auburn hair, bright green sweater, looking down at a book. As if sensing his gaze, she looked up, and their eyes met. She smiled, genuinely, and waved him over. Brett's legs felt heavy as he walked to her table. Up close, he could see she was beautiful in a natural way, no heavy makeup, just clear skin and kind eyes that seemed to actually see him. "Brett?" she asked, standing to shake his hand. "I'm Claire. Claire Patterson. It's so nice to meet you." Her hand was warm. His was probably cold and sweaty. He managed a weak smile. "Nice to meet you too." They Saturday. Claire had already ordered tea. A barista came over and Brett ordered black coffee, the cheapest thing on the menu. His wallet had $23 until his unemployment check came through next week. "So, Monica tells me you have a daughter," Claire said, her voice gentle. "Hannah, right? She's 10. Brett nodded. Talking about Hannah usually made him smile, but tonight even that felt hard. "Yeah. She's great. Really great kid." Claire watched him carefully. "Are you okay?" The question, asked with such genuine concern by a complete stranger, cracked something inside him. Brett felt his eyes burn. He looked away, jaw clenched, trying to hold it together. Not here. Not now. Not in front of this woman he just met. "I'm sorry," he managed. "I shouldn't have come. This was a mistake." He started to stand, but Claire reached across the table, not touching him but her hand there, present. "Please don't go. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. But you look like you're carrying something really heavy, and maybe it would help to just sit here for a minute. No pressure." Brett froze, half standing, half sitting. Her eyes held no judgment, no pity, just openness. Slowly, he sat back down. The barista brought his coffee. Claire waited, sipping her tea, not pushing. Finally, Brett spoke, his voice rough. "I got an eviction notice today. 30 days. My daughter and I are going to be homeless." The words hung in the air. He waited for Claire to make an excuse, to suddenly remember somewhere she needed to be. Instead, she leaned forward slightly. "Tell me what happened." And somehow, to this stranger in a coffee shop, Brett poured out the whole story. Hannah's medical emergency. The hospital bills that insurance barely covered. Losing his job. The failed interviews. The mounting debt. His parents helping until they couldn't anymore. The reality that in 30 days, he'd be putting his daughter's things in trash bags and hoping the shelter had room. Claire listened to every word, her expression shifting from concern to sadness to determination. When he finished, drained and embarrassed, she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I work at Hope Bridge, Nashville," she said. "We're a non-profit that helps families in crisis. This is exactly what we do. I want you to come see me tomorrow morning. We have emergency rent assistance, job placement programs, and connections with landlords who work with us. Will you come?" Brett stared at the card. Hope Bridge, Nashville. An address on Fifth Avenue. He wanted to refuse, to say he'd figure it out himself, but Hannah's face flashed in his mind. "I don't know if I qualify." "You qualify," Claire said firmly. "You're a father trying to take care of his daughter. That qualifies. Will you come?" Brett's throat was tight. He nodded, unable to speak. Claire smiled. "Good. Now, let's order some actual food because you look like you haven't eaten today, and you're not leaving here until you do." Have you ever felt completely alone, like the world forgot about you? What would you do if a stranger offered you hope? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to see how this story unfolds. Brett hadn't expected to eat. His stomach had been in knots for weeks, anxiety making every meal feel like swallowing rocks. But when Claire ordered 2 turkey sandwiches and a side of fruit without asking, something shifted. Maybe it was her matter-of-fact kindness, the way she didn't treat his crisis like a tragedy, but like a problem with solutions. They ate slowly. Claire asked questions about Hannah, what she liked, how she was doing after the hospital stay. Brett found himself relaxing slightly, talking about his daughter's love of drawing, her obsession with a book series about dragons, the way she'd started reading to him at night instead of the other way around. "She sounds amazing," Claire said, finishing her sandwich. "She must get her strength from you." Brett shook his head. "I'm not strong. Strong people don't end up where I am." "Strong people are the ones who keep going when everything falls apart," Claire replied. "Weak people give up. You're here, working on solutions. That's strength." Brett looked at her, really looked at her. Who was this woman? Why was she being so kind? "Why are you helping me? You don't know me." Claire was quiet for a moment, turning her teacup in her hands. 5 years ago, I was living in my car in Portland. I'd left an abusive marriage with nothing but a duffel bag and my dog. I was working at a gas station, sleeping in a parking lot, showering at a gym. I felt invisible, like the world had decided I didn't matter. Brett's eyes widened. This poised, professional woman had been homeless? One day, Claire continued, a customer at the gas station noticed I looked exhausted. She asked if I was okay. I broke down and told her everything. She worked at a women's shelter. She got me in that night, helped me apply for assistance, connected me with a job training program. Within 6 months, I had an apartment and a job at Hope Bridge's Portland location. Within 2 years, I'd moved into case management. Last year, they transferred me here to help open the Nashville office. She met Brett's gaze. That woman who helped me? She was a complete stranger. She didn't have to care. But she did, and it changed my life. So when I see someone who needs help, I remember her. I remember how it felt to have someone see me and decide I was worth saving. Brett felt emotion rising in his chest again. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me. Just come tomorrow. Let us help. And someday, when you're back on your feet, help someone else. That's how this works." They talked for another hour. Claire shared more of her story, the hard years rebuilding her life, the joy of finally feeling safe and purposeful. Brett told her about his late wife, Hannah's mother, who'd died from cancer when Hannah was 3. The grief that had nearly broken him. The way he'd somehow kept going because his daughter needed him. When they finally left the coffee shop at 9, Brett felt different. Not fixed, not saved, but less alone. Claire walked him to his truck. "I meant what I said," she told him. "Come tomorrow. 9 in the morning. We'll start working on this together." "I'll be there," Brett promised. Claire hesitated, then said, "Can I ask you something? Would you let me meet Hannah? Maybe we could all have dinner together this week. Nothing formal, just so she knows there are people who want to help." Brett's first instinct was to say no, to keep Hannah separate from this crisis. But then he thought about how scared his daughter had been lately, How she'd heard him on the phone arguing with the landlord, how she'd seen him cry when he thought she was asleep. She'd like that, he said. She'd like you. Claire smiled. How about Thursday? I'll bring ingredients and cook at your place if that's okay. Nothing fancy. You don't have to do that. I know. I want to. Is 6 good? Brett nodded, overwhelmed. 6 is good. They exchanged phone numbers. As Brett drove home to the small apartment that might not be his much longer, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. He felt hope. Hannah was already asleep when he got home, curled up in her twin bed surrounded by stuffed animals. Brett sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe, peaceful and trusting. He'd been so afraid he was failing her, that his inability to keep a roof over her head made him a bad father. But maybe, just maybe, agreeing to that blind date was the first step towards something better. He pulled out Claire's business card and set it on his nightstand where he'd see it first thing in the morning. Tomorrow, he'd go to Hope Bridge. Tomorrow, he'd start accepting help instead of drowning alone. For the first time in 3 months, Brett Mitchell went to sleep believing things might actually be okay. Thursday evening arrived faster than Brett expected. He'd spent Monday morning at Hope Bridge, where Claire and her colleagues had immediately started processing his case. They'd contacted his landlord, negotiated a temporary hold on the eviction while they worked on emergency rent assistance, and connected Brett with 3 job opportunities that matched his background in construction management. By Thursday, he'd had 2 interviews. Both had gone well. The second one, with a growing residential development company, had ended with the owner shaking his hand and saying, "I'll call you tomorrow with an offer." Brett had floated home, barely believing it. Now, cleaning the apartment with Hannah before Claire arrived, he felt nervous in a different way than he had Monday. This wasn't about crisis anymore. This was about someone choosing to spend time with them, to cook dinner in their modest kitchen, to get to know his daughter. "Dad, is she nice?" Hannah asked for the 10th time, wiping down the coffee table. "Very nice," Brett assured her. "You'll like her." "Is she your girlfriend?" Brett froze. "No, honey. She's a friend who's helping us." Hannah gave him a look that said she didn't quite believe him, but she didn't push it. At exactly 6, there was a knock. Brett opened the door to find Claire holding 2 reusable grocery bags, wearing jeans and a bright blue sweater, her hair in a casual ponytail. She looked different from the professional woman at Hope Bridge, more relaxed. "Hi," she said brightly. "I brought supplies for spaghetti and meatballs. Hope that's okay." "That's Hannah's favorite," Brett said, surprised. Claire grinned. Monica might have mentioned that. Hannah appeared behind Brett, peeking around him shyly. Claire crouched down to her level. "You must be Hannah. I've heard so much about you. Your dad says you're an amazing artist." Hannah's face lit up. "I like to draw dragons mostly." "Dragons are the best," Claire agreed seriously. "Do you think you could show me some of your drawings after dinner? I'd love to see them." "Okay," Hannah said, already warming up. Brett stepped aside to let Claire in. His apartment was small, older, with a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, but Claire moved through it comfortably, unpacking groceries, finding pots and pans, acting like this was completely normal. "Can I help?" Brett asked. "You can keep me company," Claire said. "Hannah, how about you set the table?" Hannah nodded eagerly and got to work. Brett leaned against the counter, watching Claire brown meat, boil pasta, humming softly to herself. The scene felt surreal, domestic, like a family. "So I have good news," Claire said as she stirred sauce. "We got approval for 2 months of rent assistance. The check will go directly to your landlord tomorrow. That buys you time to get stable." Brett's chest tightened with relief. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take that job if they offer it tomorrow," Claire replied. "They called this afternoon," Brett admitted. "I start Monday." Claire turned, her face breaking into a huge smile. "Brett, that's wonderful. See, things are turning around." Over dinner, Claire asked Hannah about school, her friends, her favorite subjects. Hannah, normally shy with new people, chatted away about her dragon drawings, her best friend Ava, and how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. "That's a great goal," Claire said. "I volunteered at an animal shelter in Portland. The vets there were amazing. You'd be great at that." Really? Hannah's eyes shone. Could I volunteer too? When you're a bit older, definitely. For now, maybe we could visit sometime, just to see what it's like. Hannah looked at Brett with such hope that his throat tightened. That sounds like a plan, he managed. After dinner, Hannah dragged Claire to her room to show off her art collection. Brett cleaned up the kitchen, listening to his daughter's excited voice and Claire's genuine responses. When they came back out, Hannah was holding Claire's hand like they'd been friends forever. Dad, Claire said she'd bring me real art supplies. Professional ones. Brett opened his mouth to say that wasn't necessary, but Claire caught his eye and shook her head slightly. It's just some colored pencils and good paper. Every artist needs quality tools. Brett swallowed his pride. That's very kind of you. As the evening wound down and Hannah got ready for bed, Brett walked Claire to the door. In the hallway, away from Hannah's ears, Claire turned to him. She's wonderful, she said softly. You've done an amazing job with her. I've been terrified I was failing her. You're not. She's happy, healthy, and clearly loved. That's what matters. Claire paused. I know this is all happening fast. The help, me being here. If it's too much, tell me. Brett shook his head. It's not too much. It's saving us. I don't have words for what you're doing. Then don't find words. Just let it happen. Let people care. She smiled. I'll see you at the office tomorrow. We have some paperwork to finalize. I'll be there. After she left, Brett stood in the quiet apartment, feeling the weight of the last months lifting slightly. Hannah called from her room. Dad, I really like Claire. Can she come back? I think she will, Brett called back. He thought about how 3 days ago he'd been sitting in his truck, ready to give up. Now he had a job starting Monday, 2 months of rent covered, and someone who genuinely cared whether he and Hannah were okay. Sometimes, Brett thought, hope comes from the most unexpected places. The call came through at 10 a.m. on Friday. Brett was at Hope Bridge's office, sitting across from Claire as they reviewed benefit applications, when his phone rang. Unknown number, Nashville area code. This is Brett, he answered. Brett, this is Pastor Joel Hammond from Cornerstone Church on 8th Avenue. Claire Patterson reached out to our outreach ministry about your situation. I'd like to help. Can you meet me at the church at 2 today? Brett glanced at Claire, who was watching him with an encouraging smile. Yes, sir. I can be there. After he hung up, Brett turned to Claire. Did you contact a church? Hope Bridge partners with several faith communities, Claire explained. They have funds specifically for families in crisis. I thought it was worth asking. Pastor Joel is great. He genuinely wants to help people, not preach at them. Brett had grown up in church but stopped going after his wife died. The platitudes people offered had felt empty then. But now, facing actual help, he felt nervous anticipation instead of bitterness. At 2 o'clock, Brett walked into Cornerstone Church. It was a modern building, bright and welcoming, not the dark traditional church of his childhood. Pastor Joel met him in the lobby, a middle-aged man in jeans and a casual button-down, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Brett, thanks for coming. Let's talk in my office. The office was comfortable, with windows overlooking a community garden. Pastor Joel got straight to the point. Claire told me what you're going through. Our church has an emergency assistance fund for situations exactly like yours. We'd like to cover your next 2 months of rent after the initial assistance from Hope Bridge runs out. That gives you 4 months total to get stable with your new job. Brett stared at him. I can't accept that. That's too much. Why can't you accept it? Pastor Joel asked gently. We have the money. We raise it specifically to help families. You have a daughter who needs a home. This is exactly what the fund is for. But I'm not even a member here. I haven't been to church in years. God's grace doesn't require membership, Pastor Joel said with a smile. Look, Brett, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen too many good people suffer because they are too proud to accept help. Pride is expensive. It costs you your home, your health, your peace. Humility? Humility is accepting that sometimes we need each other. That's not weakness. That's being human. Brett felt his eyes burning again. He'd cried more in the last week than in the previous year. I'll pay it back. When I'm working steady, I'll pay every cent back. If you want to, that's fine. But you could also pay it forward someday, help another family when you're able. Either way works. Pastor Joel slid a paper across his desk. This is a commitment letter. Sign it, and I'll have the check ready by Monday. Brett's hand shook as he signed. Pastor Joel stood and shook his hand again. Welcome to the community, Brett. You're not alone anymore. As Brett left the church, his phone rang again. This time it was a number he recognized, Hannah's school. Mr. Mitchell? This is Principal Anderson. I wanted to let you know we've enrolled Hannah in our after-school tutoring program at no cost. Claire Patterson reached out about Hannah missing school during her hospital stay. Our volunteer tutors will help her catch up in math and reading. The program runs Monday through Thursday, 3 to 5. Brett pulled over, overwhelmed. Thank you. Hannah would love that. She's a great kid. We want to support her. Oh, and our guidance counselor, Mrs. Peters, would like to meet with you both next week. Not because there's a problem, Principal Anderson added quickly. Just to make sure Hannah has emotional support after everything she's been through. After that call, Brett sat in his truck for 10 minutes, trying to process everything. In less than a week, strangers had provided 2 months of rent from Hope Bridge, 2 more months from Cornerstone Church, a job with good pay, free tutoring for Hannah, counseling support at school. He'd gone from facing homelessness to having 4 months of stability and resources he hadn't even known existed. That evening, Brett took Hannah out for ice cream to celebrate, something they hadn't done in months. At the shop, Hannah ran into her friend Ava and her mother, Mrs. Kim. Brett, Mrs. Kim said warmly. How are you? Ava said Hannah's been back at school. We're so glad she's feeling better. Thank you. She's doing great. Mrs. Kim hesitated. I heard through the school network that things have been difficult. I hope this isn't too forward, but my husband owns a construction supply company. If you need anything, tools, materials, anything at all, please let us know. We offer deep discounts to families in need. Brett was speechless. How did word spread so fast? And why did everyone want to help? That's incredibly kind, he managed. We've all needed help at some point, Mrs. Kim said simply. That's what communities are for. Driving home, Hannah full of ice cream and happy chatter, Brett marveled at how his world had transformed. The eviction notice was still in his glove compartment, but now it felt like a relic from a different life. His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. How'd it go with Pastor Joel? Brett pulled over and called her instead. When she answered, he said, I don't understand why everyone's helping me. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy who messed up and couldn't keep his life together. Brett, Claire said firmly, you didn't mess up. Life happened. Medical emergencies happen. Job loss happens. What matters is you kept fighting for your daughter, and now people see that and want to support you. Let them. You deserve this. I don't know how I'll ever repay everyone. You'll repay it by being there for Hannah, by succeeding at your new job, and by helping the next person who needs it. That's how this works. Kindness circles around. It always comes back. Brett took a deep breath. Thank you, Claire, for all of it, for seeing me that night in the coffee shop and deciding I was worth helping. You were always worth it, Claire said softly. You just needed someone to remind you. That night, tucking Hannah into bed, she looked up at him with serious eyes. Dad, are we going to be okay now? Brett kissed her forehead. Yes, baby. We're going to be okay. Better than okay. Because of Claire and all the nice people. Because of them, and because we didn't give up. Hannah smiled and closed her eyes. Brett sat there for a while, watching her sleep, thinking about Pastor Joel's words. Pride is expensive. Humility is accepting that sometimes we need each other. For the first time in his adult life, Brett Mitchell understood what it meant to be part of a community. And it felt like coming home. Monday morning, Brett put on the best clothes he owned, a button-down shirt and khakis Hannah had ironed for him the night before, and drove to Riverside Development Company. The office was in a converted warehouse in East Nashville, all exposed brick and modern fixtures. His new boss, Tom Sullivan, met him at the door with a genuine smile. Ready to get started? Tom asked. Absolutely, Brett said, meaning it. The job was perfect. Brett would manage residential construction projects, coordinating subcontractors, ensuring quality control, handling client communication. It was exactly what he'd done before, but Tom's company felt different. Smaller, more personal, with a culture that valued people over just profit. Tom introduced him to the crew: Mike, who handled electrical; Carlos, the plumbing specialist; and Jenny, the office manager who ran everything behind the scenes. They welcomed Brett without the usual new guy hazing, just genuine friendliness. Claire Patterson recommended you, Tom mentioned during lunch. She's helped us find 3 employees now. Everyone she sends us works out great. She has good instincts about people. Brett nodded. She's been amazing. Hope Bridge does good work. We donate to them every year. It's important to invest in the community, you know? We all do better when we all do better. By the end of the first week, Brett fell into a rhythm. Worked during the day, picking Hannah up from tutoring at 5, making dinner together, helping with homework. Simple, normal, stable. Things he'd taken for granted before that now felt like precious gifts. Claire texted him daily, just checking in, making sure the transition was going well. On Friday evening, she asked if she could take Hannah to the animal shelter on Saturday. Brett said yes, and watching his daughter's excitement made his chest tight with gratitude. Saturday afternoon, Claire picked Hannah up in her practical sedan, and they headed to Nashville Pet Rescue. Brett used the free time to clean the apartment thoroughly, wanting everything perfect for when Hannah came home bursting with stories. When they returned 3 hours later, Hannah couldn't stop talking. Dad, we saw puppies and kittens and a rabbit. Claire let me help feed them. She said when I'm 12 I can officially volunteer. Mrs. Rodriguez, she runs the place, she's so nice. She said I'm a natural with animals. Claire leaned against the doorframe, smiling at Hannah's enthusiasm. She really is. All the animals loved her. Thank you, Brett said quietly to Claire, for spending your Saturday doing this. I enjoyed it. Hannah's easy to be around. She paused. Actually, I was wondering if you both might want to come to a community dinner tomorrow. Hope Bridge hosts one every month. Just families we've worked with, staff, volunteers. Nothing formal, just food and fellowship. Brett's instinct was to say no, to avoid being on display as the charity case. But Hannah was already bouncing excitedly. Can we go, Dad? Please. Looking at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Claire's open expression, Brett pushed down his pride. We'd love to. Sunday evening, they arrived at Hope Bridge's community center to find about 50 people already there, the room alive with conversation and laughter. Long tables were set up potluck style, covered with dishes people had brought. Children ran around playing tag while adults talked in small groups. Claire introduced them around. Brett met families who'd been through similar crises: medical emergencies, job losses, domestic violence, addiction recovery. Every person had a story of hitting bottom and finding help. Not one of them seemed ashamed. Instead, they radiated gratitude and determination to pay forward what they'd received. A woman named Beth, probably mid-40s with kind eyes, approached Brett. You're new to Hope Bridge, right? Claire mentioned you. I'm Beth Morrison. I went through their program 2 years ago, after my husband died, and left me with 3 kids in massive debt. How are you doing now? Brett asked. Great. I'm assistant manager at a hotel downtown. My kids are thriving, and I volunteer here twice a month. When Claire helped me, she said someday I'd want to help others. She was right. Beth smiled. It gets better, and then you get to be part of making it better for someone else. That's the beautiful part. Throughout the evening, person after person shared similar stories. A single mom who'd been homeless now working as a paralegal. A veteran dealing with PTSD now leading a support group. A young couple who'd lost everything in a fire now homeowners again. Brett realized this wasn't about charity. This was about community, about people lifting each other up and refusing to let anyone fall through the cracks. Pastor Joel was there too, his church having provided the funding for the dinner. He found Brett during dessert. How's the job going? Really well. Tom's a great boss. He's a good man. His company does quality work. Pastor Joel paused. You know, we have a men's group that meets Wednesday mornings before work. Just coffee and conversation. You'd be welcome anytime. Brett surprised himself by saying, I might take you up on that. As the evening wound down, Hannah made friends with Beth's youngest daughter, Emily. They exchanged phone numbers so they could have play dates. Brett watched his daughter laugh, genuinely happy, and felt something shift in his chest. This was what he'd been missing. Not just financial stability, but connection. Belonging. Claire appeared beside him. You okay? More than okay, Brett said honestly. A month ago I thought my life was over. Now I have a job I like, my daughter's happy, and I'm surrounded by people who actually care. I keep waiting to wake up and find out it's not real. It's real, Claire assured him. And it's just getting started. You're going to build a good life, Brett. I can see it. He looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd chosen to help him when she had no reason to. Who'd spent her time and energy making sure he and Hannah had what they needed. Who'd introduced them to an entire community of support. I'm falling for you, he said quietly. The words came out before he could stop them. Claire's eyes widened. Brett. I know it's too soon. I know I don't have anything to offer you yet. But I needed you to know. You've changed my life, and not just because of the practical help. Because you made me believe I was worth saving. Claire was quiet for a moment, then she smiled softly. It's not too soon. And you have plenty to offer. But let's take it slow, okay? Make sure you're stable, that Hannah's adjusted. We have time. Brett nodded, relieved she hadn't run. Time sounds good. Driving home that night, Hannah asleep in the passenger seat, Brett thought about how one decision, one blind date, had led to this. He'd almost canceled that night. Almost stayed in his truck and driven away. But he'd gone inside, and Claire had seen him, really seen him, and decided he mattered. Now he had a job, a home, friends, community, and the beginning of something that felt like love. Sometimes hope comes dressed as a stranger in a coffee shop, offering nothing more than a listening ear and a business card. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. 3 months into his job, Brett sat in Tom Sullivan's office for his first formal review. Tom leaned back in his chair, looking pleased. You've exceeded expectations, Brett. The Morrison project finished ahead of schedule and under budget. The clients loved working with you. Carlos says you're the best project manager he's worked with. I'm giving you a raise and putting you on our biggest project starting next month. Brett felt pride swell in his chest. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity you gave me. Claire knew what she was doing when she recommended you. Tom pulled out a folder. Speaking of Claire, she asked if you'd be interested in something. Hope Bridge is starting a mentorship program. They want people who've been through their services to mentor new clients. You interested? Brett thought about it. He'd been so focused on rebuilding that he hadn't considered how he might help others. What would it involve? Couple hours a week. Mostly just being available to talk, share your experience, help people navigate the process. Claire thinks you'd be good at it. I'll do it, Brett said without hesitation. The following week, Brett met his first mentee at Hope Bridge. His name was Daniel Foster, 32, recently laid off from his job as a mechanic, with a wife and 2 young kids. He looked exactly how Brett had felt 3 months ago, desperate, embarrassed, defeated. They sat in one of Hope Bridge's meeting rooms. Daniel stayed at his hands, jaw tight. I can't believe I'm here. I should be able to take care of my family. I felt the same way, Brett said. 3 months ago, I was you. Eviction notice, no job, convinced I was failing my daughter. Daniel looked up, surprised. 3 months ago. Brett nodded. I thought accepting help meant I was weak. Took me a while to understand that letting people help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Pride costs too much. It was going to cost me my home and my daughter's stability. Accepting help saved us. Over the next hour, Brett shared his story. The blind date with Claire that changed everything. The community that stepped in. The job Tom gave him. Daniel listened intently, and by the end, some of the tension had left his shoulders. You really think it can turn around that fast? Daniel asked. It can if you let people help. Don't fight the process. Take the assistance. Do the job training if they offer it. Show up to appointments. Follow through. The system works if you work with it. They met weekly after that. Brett helped Daniel practice interview skills, connected him with Tom's network of contractors, encouraged him when applications were rejected. 4 weeks later, Daniel got hired at a local auto shop. His family qualified for rental assistance. Slowly, carefully, his life stabilized. The night Daniel called to say his family's finances were finally secure, Brett felt something profound. Helping Daniel hadn't just helped Daniel. It had helped Brett, too. It had given purpose to his own struggle. At home, Hannah had her own way of paying kindness forward. Her tutoring had gone so well that she'd caught up completely in all her subjects. Now she'd started a project at school called Kindness Cards, where students made encouraging notes for kids who were struggling or new to the school. Mrs. Peters said, "I'm good at making people feel better," Hannah told Brett proudly. "Like how Claire made us feel better." Brett hugged his daughter. "You are good at that. You have a big heart." Hannah's project grew. Other students joined. The school counselor, Mrs. Peters, called it the most positive initiative we've had in years. Local news even did a small feature on it, showing Hannah and her classmates making cards and delivering them to surprise students. Claire watched the news segment with Brett one evening at his apartment. They'd been dating officially for a month now, taking it slow like she'd suggested, making sure Hannah was comfortable, making sure Brett's stability was real. "She's like you," Claire said, resting her head on Brett's shoulder. "She sees people who need help and does something about it." "She learned it from you," Brett corrected. "We both did." That weekend, Pastor Joel invited Brett to share his testimony at Cornerstone Church's Sunday service. Brett almost said no, uncomfortable with being on display. But Pastor Joel pressed gently. "People need to hear stories like yours. Not the tragedy part. The restoration part. They need to know that when life knocks you down, there are people who will help you back up." Sunday morning, Brett stood in front of 300 people and told his story. The eviction notice. The blind date. Claire's kindness. The community's support. His voice shook at times, but he pushed through. "I'm not special," he concluded. "I'm just a dad who got knocked down and was fortunate enough to have people who refused to let me stay down. If you're struggling, ask for help. And if you're able, be the help someone needs. That's how we make it through. Together." The response was overwhelming. After the service, dozens of people approached him. Some shared their own stories. Others thanked him for his honesty. Several asked how they could get involved with Hope Bridge or volunteer. One elderly man, tears in his eyes, pressed a check into Brett's hand. "For Hope Bridge. In your honor." Brett looked at the check. $500. He tried to hand it back. "Sir, I can't accept this." "You're not accepting it. You're delivering it. Give it to Claire. Let her help another family the way she helped yours." Monday morning, Brett walked into Hope Bridge and handed Claire the check. She stared at it, then at him. "Brett, this is amazing. It's because you helped me, and I was able to help Daniel, and now he's helping his kids, and I told the church, and this man wrote a check. That's what you said, right?" Kindness circles around. Claire's eyes were bright. "That's exactly what I said." Are you inspired by stories of communities coming together to help those in need? Subscribe to see what happens next, and comment below with your own experiences of unexpected kindness. Over the next weeks, Brett's mentorship work expanded. He met with 3 more clients, all in different stages of crisis. He shared his story again and again, each time feeling more confident that his struggle had purpose. Tom noticed the change in Brett and pulled him aside one day. "You've got something special going on. This mentorship work, the way you encourage the crew, the way you treat subcontractors with respect even when they mess up. You're a leader, Brett." "I'm just trying to be what people were for me," Brett said. "That's what makes you a leader," Tom replied. That evening, Brett sat with Hannah doing homework, Claire reading on the couch nearby, and felt contentment he'd never experienced before. His life wasn't perfect. Money was still sometimes tight. The apartment was still small. But he had work he valued, a daughter who was thriving, a community he belonged to, and a woman he loved. 3 months ago, he'd been holding an eviction notice, thinking his life was over. Now he was helping others rebuild theirs, and in doing so, he discovered something profound. Saving yourself means helping others. Grace received demands grace given. Brett Mitchell had learned what it meant to pay kindness forward, and his life was richer for it. 6 months after that first blind date, Brett's life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. He'd been promoted again at work, managing Riverside Development's largest residential project. Hannah was excelling in school, her friendship with Emily blossoming, her confidence growing daily. And Claire had become a permanent fixture in their lives, a presence both he and Hannah depended on. They were having dinner at Claire's apartment one Saturday evening, Hannah and Claire making cookies in the kitchen while Brett set the table, when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello. Is this Brett Mitchell? A woman's voice, vaguely familiar. Yes, who's this? It's Stephanie, your ex-wife. Brett froze. Stephanie, Hannah's mother. Except Hannah's mother had died when Hannah was 3. He'd remarried briefly 2 years later, a disastrous 18-month marriage that ended badly. Stephanie had left, saying she didn't want to be a mother to someone else's kid. He hadn't heard from her in 5 years. What do you want, Stephanie? In the kitchen, Claire glanced at him, noticing his tone. Hannah was oblivious, focused on cookie dough. I want to see Hannah. I've changed, Brett. I'm in a better place now. I made a mistake walking away. I want to be part of her life. Brett's jaw clenched. You walked away 5 years ago. You don't get to just come back. I have rights. I'm her stepmother legally. I never signed away my rights. You have no rights. You abandoned her. I spoke to a lawyer, Brett. He says I can petition for visitation. I'm trying to do this the nice way first. Can we meet? Talk about it. Brett wanted to hang up, to pretend this call never happened. But he knew ignoring Stephanie wouldn't make her go away. I'll meet you. But Hannah's not involved until I know what you really want. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop Tuesday afternoon. Brett hung up, his hands shaking. Claire appeared beside him. What's wrong? Brett explained, his voice low so Hannah wouldn't hear. Claire's expression shifted from concern to determination. What does she want? I don't know. She mentioned a lawyer. I can't lose Hannah. Claire. I can't. You won't, Claire said firmly. We'll figure this out. Tuesday afternoon, Brett met Stephanie at a neutral coffee shop across town. She looked different, healthier. Her hair was styled nicely, her clothes professional. She'd clearly gotten her life together. Thanks for meeting me, she said as he sat down. Brett didn't waste time on pleasantries. What do you want? I want to be part of Hannah's life. I know I messed up. I was dealing with a lot back then, my own issues, addiction problems I wasn't ready to face. But I've been sober 3 years now. I have a good job. I'm in therapy. I've done the work to become someone Hannah could be proud of. She doesn't know you. You're a stranger to her. I know. That's my fault. But I want to change that. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just want a chance to know her. Brett studied her, looking for signs of manipulation. But Stephanie seemed genuine. Still, he couldn't shake his distrust. Why now? Because I'm finally healthy enough. And because I've been watching from a distance. I saw the news story about Hannah's kindness project. I saw how amazing she is, and I realized I'm missing out on knowing this incredible kid. I don't want to miss any more. You could have reached out anytime in the past 5 years. Why go to a lawyer first? Stephanie looked uncomfortable. I was afraid you'd just say no. The lawyer said if I have to go through court, I need to start building a case. But I don't want to do this through court, Brett. I want us to work something out. I want Hannah to have another person in her life who loves her. Brett felt torn. Part of him wanted to refuse outright, to protect Hannah from potential hurt. But another part, the part that had learned about second chances and grace from his own experience, hesitated. I need time to think about this, he said finally. And if I even consider it, Hannah's well-being comes first. One wrong move, one hint that you're not serious, and you're done. I understand, Stephanie said. I'll wait to hear from you. Brett left feeling sick to his stomach. At home, He immediately called Claire, then Pastor Joel, then Tom. Everyone gave the same advice: get a lawyer, protect himself and Hannah, but don't dismiss Stephanie outright if she's genuinely changed. That evening, Claire came over after Hannah was asleep. They sat on Brett's small balcony, the Nashville night warm around them. "I'm scared," Brett admitted. "What if she takes me to court and wins? What if I lose Hannah?" "You're not going to lose her," Claire said. "You're her father in every way that matters. You raised her. You've been there through everything. No judge would take her from you." "But Stephanie has legal standing. She never signed away her parental rights." "Then we get a lawyer who specializes in family law. We document your relationship with Hannah. We show you're the stable parent. We protect your family." Claire took his hand. "Brett, you're not alone in this. I'm here. Pastor Joel's here. Tom's here. The whole community that rallied around you before will rally again. We won't let anything happen to Hannah." Brett squeezed her hand, grateful. "What do I tell Hannah?" "The truth. That Stephanie wants to be part of her life, and you're figuring out what's best for her. Hannah's smart. She deserves honesty." The next day, Brett talked to Hannah after school. Her initial reaction was confusion. "I don't remember her," Hannah said, sitting at the kitchen table with her afternoon snack. "You were very young when she left." "Does she want to be my mom?" Brett chose his words carefully. "She wants to know you. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. But I want you to know that whatever happens, you're my daughter, and nothing changes that." Hannah was quiet for a moment. "Are you worried?" "A little," Brett admitted. "But we're going to be okay. We always are. Because we have Claire and Pastor Joel and all our friends." "Exactly." Hannah nodded, processing. Then she said something that surprised him. "Maybe she's like the people you help at Hope Bridge. Maybe she needed a second chance and now she's ready." Brett felt his throat tighten. His daughter's capacity for grace astounded him. "Maybe," he said. "We'll see." Over the next week, Brett consulted with a family lawyer named Patricia Chen. She reviewed his case and gave him cautious optimism. "You have a strong position," Patricia said. "You're Hannah's primary parent. You've provided stability. You have community support. But Stephanie does have legal standing as a step-parent who never terminated rights. A judge might grant supervised visitation." "What's the best-case scenario?" "We negotiate outside court. Set up a gradual introduction. If Stephanie's genuine about being stable and wanting to know Hannah, we create a structured plan. If she violates it or shows she's not serious, we go to court with documentation. But litigation is expensive and stressful. Better to try mediation first." Brett agreed to try. Patricia reached out to Stephanie's lawyer. They set up a mediation session for the following week. The night before mediation, Brett couldn't sleep. He lay in bed thinking about everything that could go wrong, every way this could hurt Hannah. Claire stayed over, sleeping in the living room, just being present in case he needed her. At 3 a.m, Brett got up and found Claire reading on the couch. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Thinking too much?" Brett sat beside her. What if she really has changed? What if Hannah needs her in her life, and I'm being selfish keeping them apart? "You're not being selfish. You're being a father. But Brett, you've learned about second chances yourself. You know what it's like when people give you a chance to prove you've changed. Maybe Stephanie deserves the same thing. And if she hurts Hannah, then we deal with it. But we don't punish her for what she might do. We see what she actually does and respond accordingly. That's grace. That's what people gave you." Brett leaned into Claire, drawing strength from her presence. "How'd you get so wise?" "I learned from watching you rebuild your life with courage and humility," Claire said softly. "You're stronger than you think, Brett Mitchell. And whatever happens tomorrow, you'll handle it." As dawn broke over Nashville, Brett prayed for the first time in years. Not a desperate plea, but a simple request for wisdom to do what was best for Hannah. And for the grace to extend to Stephanie what others had extended to him, a chance to prove she'd changed. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight, he had to trust that the same community that had saved him would help him navigate this new challenge. The mediation took place in a neutral office downtown, a conference room with large windows overlooking the city. Brett arrived with Patricia and Claire. Stephanie came with her lawyer, a stern-looking woman named Ms. Rodriguez. The mediator, a calm older man named Mr. Thompson, started by explaining the process. We're here to find a solution that serves Hannah's best interests. Both of you want what's good for her. Let's start there. For 2 hours, they talked. Stephanie presented documentation of her sobriety, employment records, therapy reports. She spoke honestly about her past mistakes and her genuine desire to know Hannah. I'm not trying to disrupt her life, Stephanie said, her voice steady. I know Brett's her father. I just want a chance to be someone positive in her life. To show her that people can change, can get better. Brett listened, and slowly his wall of defensiveness lowered slightly. This wasn't the unstable woman who'd left 5 years ago. This was someone who'd genuinely done the work. Patricia spoke up. If we agree to supervise visitation, we need clear boundaries. Scheduled times, neutral locations, someone present to ensure Hannah's comfortable. And Mr. Mitchell maintains full custody. This is about letting Hannah know you, not rearranging her life. Stephanie nodded immediately. I agree to all of that. Whatever makes Hannah feel safe. They worked out a plan, 1 hour per week, at a family counseling center, with a counselor present. After 3 months, if it was going well, they'd revisit the arrangement. Brett would have the right to end it at any time if Hannah was uncomfortable. As they signed the agreement, Mr. Thompson smiled. This is what successful mediation looks like. 2 adults putting a child's needs first. Hannah's lucky to have people who care this much. Walking out, Brett felt drained but relieved. Claire squeezed his hand. That went as well as it could have. I can't believe I agreed to this, Brett said. You agreed because it's the right thing. Because someone gave you a second chance and it changed your life. You're giving Stephanie the same gift. The first visit was scheduled for the following Saturday. Brett was nervous, but Hannah seemed more curious than anxious. They arrived at the family center together, and a counselor named Dr. Patel met them in the lobby. Hannah, I'm Dr. Patel. I'll be in the room with you and Stephanie today, just to make sure everyone's comfortable. Your dad will be right in the waiting room. You can stop anytime you want. Okay. Hannah nodded bravely. Brett kissed her forehead. I'll be right outside. Watching his daughter walk into that room was one of the hardest things Brett had ever done. Claire sat with him in the waiting room, holding his hand while he tried not to pace. An hour later, the door opened. Hannah came out smiling. Dad, she's really nice. She brought me art supplies and asked about my dragons. Behind her, Stephanie stood with Dr. Patel, looking emotional. Thank you for this chance, she said to Brett. Brett just nodded, focused on Hannah. Did you have a good time? Yeah. Can we come back next week? Relief flooded through him. If you want to. They established a routine. Every Saturday, 1 hour, always with Dr. Patel present. Hannah began looking forward to it. Stephanie was consistent, never late, never pushing boundaries, always respectful of Brett's role as Hannah's father. At the 3-month review, Dr. Patel reported that the relationship was healthy and positive. Hannah benefits from having another caring adult in her life. Stephanie has been appropriate and mindful. I recommend continuing. But just as things seemed settled, Brett received a letter. A custody petition. Despite the agreement, Stephanie was filing for joint custody. Brett's hands shook as he read it. She lied. She was planning this the whole time. He immediately called Patricia, who read the filing and swore under her breath. This is aggressive. She's claiming that since she's established a relationship with Hannah, she should have equal parenting time. Can she do that? She can try. We'll fight it. But Brett, this means court. This means a hearing where a judge decides. The hearing was set for 4 weeks away. Brett felt like he was drowning again, all the security he'd built threatened by legal documents and courtrooms. But this time, he wasn't alone. Pastor Joel organized a letter-writing campaign. Members of Cornerstone Church, Hope Bridge clients, volunteers, all wrote letters to the court about Brett's character and his relationship with Hannah. Tom Sullivan wrote a letter detailing Brett's work ethic and integrity. Hannah's teachers wrote about her well-being under Brett's care. Dr. Patel wrote about the healthy father-daughter relationship she'd observed. Claire coordinated everything, making sure every letter was properly formatted and submitted on time. "We're going to show that judge who you are," she said fiercely. "They're going to see that Hannah has an entire community supporting her life with you." The night before the hearing, a community gathering happened at Cornerstone Church. 50 people showed up to pray for Brett and Hannah, to offer encouragement, to promise they'd be at the courthouse the next day. Beth Morrison hugged Brett. "You helped me when I was struggling. Now we help you. That's what family does." Daniel Foster, the first man Brett had mentored, shook his hand. "I'm testifying tomorrow if you need me. You saved my family. I'm not letting anyone take yours." Brett looked around at all these people, this community that had become his family, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do," Pastor Joel said simply. "You deserve the same grace you've given others." The courtroom the next day was packed. Brett sat at the plaintiff's table with Patricia. Stephanie sat across the aisle with her lawyer. And behind Brett, filling the gallery, sat what seemed like half of Nashville, people from Hope Bridge, from Cornerstone Church, from Tom's Company, from Hannah's school. The judge, an older woman named Judge Martinez, looked at the crowd with raised eyebrows. "Quite a showing today." Patricia stood. "Your Honor, these people are here to testify to Mr. Mitchell's character and his relationship with his daughter. They represent the community that supports this family." The hearing lasted 3 hours. Patricia presented documentation of Brett's dedication to Hannah, medical records showing his presence at every appointment, school records showing his involvement, financial records showing his stability. Then the witnesses began. Tom testified about Brett's work ethic and integrity. Pastor Joel spoke about Brett's commitment to helping others. Beth Morrison described how Brett had mentored her through crisis. Daniel Foster talked about how Brett had helped save his family. Hannah's principal testified about Hannah's happiness and excellent adjustment. Dr. Patel, called by the court as a neutral expert, described the healthy father-daughter relationship and noted that while Hannah enjoyed visits with Stephanie, Brett was clearly her primary attachment figure and source of security. Finally, Claire took the stand. She spoke about meeting Brett at his lowest point, watching him fight to rebuild his life, witnessing his devotion to Hannah through every challenge. "Mr. Mitchell isn't perfect," Claire concluded, "but he's shown up for Hannah every single day for 10 years. He's provided stability, love, and a community of support. Hannah thrives in his care. She knows she's loved, valued, and safe. That's what children need." Stephanie's lawyer tried to argue that Stephanie had changed, that she deserved equal time. But when Stephanie took the stand, even she seemed shaken by the community support for Brett. "I do want to be part of Hannah's life," Stephanie said quietly. "But I can see now that her life is here, with her dad in this community. Maybe I was wrong to push for joint custody. Maybe I just need to be grateful for the time I get." Judge Martinez looked at all the evidence, all the testimony, all the people who'd shown up. Then she looked at Stephanie and Brett. "Ms. Foster, Mr. Mitchell, I've reviewed everything presented today. It's clear to me that Hannah has a devoted father who has built a strong, stable life for her. Mr. Mitchell, you have an extraordinary level of community support, which speaks volumes about your character." She turned to Stephanie. "Ms. Foster, I appreciate that you've worked on yourself and want a relationship with Hannah. But joint custody requires demonstrated commitment over time, not 3 months of supervised visits. I'm denying your petition for joint custody." Brett's chest loosened. Behind him, he heard soft sounds of relief from the gallery. Judge Martinez continued. "However, I'm expanding visitation. 2 hours per week, unsupervised after 6 months if Dr. Patel approves. Mr. Mitchell retains full legal and physical custody. Ms. Foster gets defined visitation. This protects Hannah's stability while allowing her to know Ms. Foster." The judge banged her gavel. "This case is closed." As they filed out of the courtroom, Brett was surrounded by people hugging him, congratulating him, celebrating with him. Hannah, who'd been with a child advocate during the proceedings, ran to him, and he picked her up, holding her tight. "It's over," Claire said, appearing beside them. "You won." "We won," Brett corrected. "All of us." That evening, Pastor Joel hosted a celebration at the church. Everyone who testified came, along with dozens of others who'd supported Brett through the ordeal. They ate, laughed, and shared stories. Tom stood up to make a toast. To Brett Mitchell, who came to us 6 months ago at rock bottom and has shown us all what it means to rebuild with grace and determination. To Hannah, who has the best father any kid could ask for. And to this community, which proves that when we lift each other up, we all rise together. Everyone raised their glasses. Brett looked around at these people, these unlikely friends who'd become family, and felt emotion rise in his throat. "I have something to say," he announced. The room quieted. 6 months ago, I was going to miss a blind date because I'd gotten an eviction notice. I felt like my life was over. But I went anyway, and I met Claire. He looked at her. She saved me by showing me that accepting help isn't weakness. By introducing me to all of you. He paused, gathering his thoughts. This hearing could have destroyed me. Instead, it showed me something beautiful. It showed me that I'm not alone. That Hannah's not alone. That we're part of something bigger than ourselves. You all came to court today not because you had to, but because you chose to. Because that's what this community does. We show up for each other. Brett's voice cracked. Thank you. For everything. For giving me and Hannah a family we didn't know we needed. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Pastor Joel started singing a simple hymn, and others joined in, voices blending in harmony, celebrating victory and community, and the kind of love that shows up when people need it most. Brett Mitchell had learned what it meant to be truly seen, truly supported, truly loved by a community, and he would spend the rest of his life making sure others experience the same grace. The weeks following the custody hearing settled into a new normal. Stephanie continued her visits with Hannah, now twice a week, gradually building a relationship based on consistency rather than grand gestures. She was respectful of boundaries, never questioning Brett's authority, simply grateful for the time she got. She's trying really hard, Hannah observed one evening after a visit. I think she really did change. Brett nodded. People can change when they do the work. She's showing up, and that matters. One Saturday afternoon in late October, nearly 7 months after that first blind date, Brett took Claire back to Riverside Coffee, the place where it all began. They sat at the same table near the window where they'd first met. Do you remember that night? Brett asked. Claire smiled. I remember a man who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world, who broke down and told me everything within the first 10 minutes, who I knew immediately I wanted to help. I was a mess. You were human. You were struggling. That's not the same as being a mess. Claire reached across the table and took his hand. You've come so far, Brett. New job, stable home, community, friends. You've built something amazing. We built it, Brett corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. They were quiet for a moment, comfortable in each other's presence. Then Brett took a breath, nervous suddenly. There's something I need to tell you, he said. Claire tilted her head, curious. Okay. I love you, Brett said. The words came easily this time. Not just because you helped me, but because of who you are. Your kindness, your strength, the way you see people and choose to believe in them. The way you've been there for Hannah, for me, through everything. I love you, Claire Patterson. Claire's eyes were bright. Brett. I know it's only been 7 months. I know we said we'd take it slow. But I need you to know. You changed my life. You changed Hannah's life. And I can't imagine any future that doesn't have you in it. Claire was quiet for a long moment, and Brett's heart hammered, afraid he'd said too much too soon. Then she smiled, that genuine warm smile that had made him feel seen that very first night. I love you too, she said softly. I've loved you since that first meeting. When you sat down at this table, terrified and honest and trying so hard to hold it together, I knew you were someone special, someone worth knowing. Brett felt relief flood through him. Really? Really? Brett, I see hundreds of people through Hope Bridge. People in crisis, people struggling. But you were different. You weren't just looking for a handout. You were genuinely trying to do right by your daughter, and circumstances had just knocked you down. I saw your strength that night. I saw your heart. And yes, I fell in love with you pretty much immediately. Why didn't you say anything? Because you needed to get stable first. You needed to rebuild your confidence, your life. I didn't want you to feel obligated to me, because I'd helped you. I wanted you to choose me because you wanted to, not because you felt you owed me. Brett shook his head, amazed. I don't feel obligated. I feel grateful. And I feel lucky. So incredibly lucky that I walked into this coffee shop 7 months ago. They ordered dinner and talked for hours, the way they had that first night, but lighter now, easier. They talked about the future, about dreams and plans and possibilities. As they left the coffee shop, walking to the parking lot under the Nashville night sky, Brett stopped. There's one more thing. Claire turned, waiting. Brett pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. Claire's eyes widened. I know it's fast, Brett said, opening the box to reveal a simple ring. I know most people wait longer. But I also know that life is unpredictable. 7 months ago I was facing homelessness. Now I'm standing here with you, with a job I love, with Hannah happy and safe, with a community that has my back. I don't want to wait to start building our future together. He knelt down on the pavement. Claire Patterson, will you marry me? Claire looked at the ring, then at Brett, tears streaming down her face. Yes. Of course yes. Brett stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close and kissed her while people walking past cheered and applauded. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying, Claire said, You know Hannah's going to lose her mind when she finds out. I asked her permission first, Brett admitted. Last week. She said, and I quote, Dad, obviously you should marry Claire. She's perfect and she makes you happy and I want her to be my real mom. Claire laughed through her tears. She said that. Every word. So this has her full approval. They drove to Brett's apartment where Hannah was staying with Beth Morrison and Emily. When they walked in, Hannah took one look at Claire's face and started jumping up and down. You said yes. You said yes. Claire knelt and opened her arms. Hannah ran into them, hugging her tightly. Does this mean you'll be my mom? If you want me to be, Claire said, stroking Hannah's hair. I definitely want you to be. Beth wiped her eyes. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Over the next days, the news spread through their community. Pastor Joel offered to perform the ceremony. Tom and his wife offered their backyard for the reception. Beth offered to coordinate decorations. The community that had rallied around Brett in crisis now rallied in celebration. They set the date for January, giving them 3 months to plan. Nothing elaborate, just simple and meaningful, surrounded by the people who mattered. One evening, as Brett and Claire were planning guest lists at his apartment, Hannah came out of her room with a drawing. I made this for the wedding invitation. The drawing showed 3 figures holding hands, a tall man, a woman with long hair, and a small girl in the middle. Above them, Hannah had written in her careful handwriting, New Family. Claire started crying. Brett pulled both of them close. That's exactly what we are. A new family. The story that had started with an eviction notice and a blind date Brett almost missed was becoming something beautiful. A love story, yes, but more than that. A story about community and second chances and the way kindness multiplies when people choose to show up for each other. Brett thought about all the moments that had led here. Meeting Claire. Accepting help from Hope Bridge. Pastor Joel's generosity. Tom's job offer. The community showing up at the courthouse. Each moment a thread, woven together into something strong and beautiful. I almost didn't go that night, Brett said quietly, looking at Claire. To the coffee shop. I almost drove away. But you didn't, Claire replied. You chose to show up. That's all it took. One choice to show up, and everything changed. Hannah yawned, tired from the excitement. Brett carried her to bed, tucking her in like he had every night for 10 years. But now, watching Claire stand in the doorway smiling at them, everything felt different. Complete. Dad? Hannah asked sleepily. Yeah, baby. I'm really glad you went to meet Claire that night. Me too, Hannah. Me too. As he kissed her goodnight and turned out the light, Brett sent a silent prayer of gratitude. For second chances. For communities that show up. For a woman who'd seen him at his worst and decided he was worth saving. For a daughter who'd weathered the storm and come out stronger. Life was good. Not perfect, but good. And that was more than enough. January arrived with crisp Tennessee winter air and bright sunshine. The morning of the wedding, Brett woke early in the small apartment he'd soon be leaving. He and Claire had found a house to rent together, nothing fancy, but with a yard for Hannah and space for all of them. Moving day was scheduled for next week. Hannah burst into his room at 7. "Dad, it's wedding day." Brett laughed and pulled her into bed with him. "It is. How are you feeling?" "Excited. A little nervous. Good nervous, though." She paused. "Dad, is it okay if I call Claire Mom after today?" Brett's throat tightened. "That's between you and Claire, baby. But I think she'd love that." They got ready together, Brett in a simple dark suit, Hannah in a bright green dress she'd picked out with Claire. At 10, Beth arrived to pick up Hannah and take her to get ready with Claire at the church. Tom and Pastor Joel came to the apartment to keep Brett company. They sat in his living room, the same room where 7 months ago Brett had sat drowning in bills and fear. "You ready for this?" Tom asked, grinning. "More than ready," Brett said. "It feels like my life is finally starting. Like everything before was just preparation for this." Pastor Joel nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes God takes us through the wilderness to show us what we're capable of, to show us we're stronger than we think, and to teach us how much we need each other." At 2 o'clock, they arrived at Cornerstone Church. The sanctuary was decorated simply with winter flowers and candles. About 100 people filled the pews, Hope Bridge clients. And volunteers, people from Tom's company, teachers from Hannah's school, neighbors, friends. The community that had saved Brett now gathered to celebrate his joy. Brett stood at the altar with Pastor Joel, palms sweating, heart racing. The pianist began playing, and Hannah came down the aisle first, carrying a small bouquet, beaming at everyone. She took her place next to Brett and whispered, "She looks so pretty, Dad." Then Claire appeared at the back of the church, and Brett's breath caught. She wore a simple knee-length dress in deep red, her hair down in soft waves, carrying white roses. But it was her smile that undid him, radiant and full of love. Beth walked beside her, giving her away. As Claire reached the altar, she took Brett's hands, and he saw tears in her eyes. Pastor Joel began. "We gather today to celebrate the union of Claire and Brett, two people who found each other at exactly the right moment. Their story is one of hope, of second chances, of community, and of love that grew from the simple act of one person choosing to see another person's worth." He spoke about the importance of showing up, of accepting help, of building families beyond blood. Then he invited Hannah forward. "Hannah, do you accept Claire as your mother, to love and support as she loves and supports you?" Hannah nodded vigorously. "Yes, definitely yes." The congregation laughed softly. Claire knelt down to Hannah's level. "Hannah, I promise to always be here for you, to support your dreams, to help you when you struggle, and to love you as my own daughter. You've made my life richer than I could have imagined." "I love you, Mom," Hannah said, the title coming naturally now. Claire pulled her into a hug, both of them crying. Brett wiped his own eyes. Pastor Joel smiled. "Now, Brett and Claire, please face each other." They turned, hands clasped. Brett went first. "Claire, 7 months ago you saw me at my lowest and chose to help. You didn't have to. You could have walked away. But you stayed. You listened. You cared. You've shown me what it means to be truly seen, truly valued. You've given Hannah and me not just your help, but your heart. I promise to honor you, support you, and love you every day for the rest of our lives. You saved us, and now I get to spend forever showing you how grateful I am." Claire's turn. Her voice was steady despite the tears. "Brett, that first night in the coffee shop, I saw your strength before you did. I saw a man fighting for his daughter, refusing to give up despite impossible circumstances. You've taught me that accepting help isn't weakness, and that community is everything. You've shown Hannah what a good father looks like, and you've shown me what true partnership means. I promise to stand by you through everything life brings, to be Hannah's mother, to build this family with you, and to never stop believing in who you are." Pastor Joel had them exchange rings. Simple bands, nothing elaborate, but heavy with meaning. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Brett, you may kiss your bride. Brett kissed Claire softly, sweetly, while Hannah cheered and the congregation applauded. They turned to face everyone, all these people who'd helped them, supported them, shown up when it mattered. I present to you, Pastor Joel announced with a huge smile, the Mitchell family. The reception was held in Tom Sullivan's backyard, transformed with string lights and simple decorations. Tables were covered with potluck dishes, a tradition for community celebrations. There was no DJ, just someone's playlist of classic love songs. During dinner, people stood to toast the couple. Tom spoke about Brett's integrity and work ethic. Beth shared how Brett had mentored her and helped her rebuild her life. Daniel Foster talked about how Brett's willingness to help others had saved his family. Then Claire stood, asking for everyone's attention. I want to thank everyone here. You are the reason this day is possible. You showed up for Brett and Hannah when they needed you. You proved that communities are families, and families show up. Because of you, a man who felt invisible was seen. A father who thought he was failing learned he was succeeding. And I got to witness the most beautiful transformation I've ever seen. She turned to Brett. You think I saved you. But you saved yourself. You just needed people to believe in you while you did it. Brett stood, pulling her close. We saved each other. They danced their first dance as a married couple to a simple song, Hannah joining them halfway through, the three of them swaying together. Around them, this community that had formed around crisis and stayed through celebration, watched and smiled. Later, as the sun set and the party continued, Brett found himself standing at the edge of the yard with Pastor Joel. How does it feel? Pastor Joel asked. Like a dream. Like I'm going to wake up and still be sitting in that truck with the eviction notice. You're not. This is real. This is what happens when someone says yes to help, yes to community, yes to hope. Your story isn't unusual, Brett. Hundreds of people go through what you went through. But your willingness to accept help, to be vulnerable, to trust people, that made all the difference. Brett watched Claire laughing with Beth and Hannah, all three of them looking happy and relaxed. I'm going to spend my life helping other people the way I was helped. I know you will. And that's how it works. Grace received becomes grace given. The circle continues. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, each person hugged Brett and Claire, congratulated them, promised to stay in touch. The community that had formed around crisis was now bonded by joy. Finally, it was just Brett, Claire, and Hannah, standing in the now quiet backyard under the stars. Ready to go home? Claire asked. Hannah yawned. Can we start calling it our house instead of the new house? Absolutely, Brett said. They drove to the rental house they'd move into next week, just to see it at night. It sat on a quiet street in East Nashville, small but perfect for their family. As they stood on the porch, looking at the dark windows that would soon be lit with their life together, Brett thought about the journey that had brought them here. An eviction notice. A blind date he almost missed. A woman who chose to see his worth. A community that rallied around him. A job that gave him purpose. A daughter who never stopped believing in him. And now, a wife who loved him and a home they'd built together. What are you thinking? Claire asked softly. I'm thinking about how close I came to missing all of this. If I hadn't gone into that coffee shop. If you hadn't decided to help. If I'd been too proud to accept support. I almost lost everything, including this. But you didn't. You showed up, even when it was hard. That's what heroes do. I'm not a hero. Yes, you are, Hannah said sleepily from between them. You're my hero. You never gave up on us. Brett knelt and hugged his daughter. I never will. They stood there together, this new family formed from crisis and kindness and the kind of love that shows up when it's needed most. The house would wait until next week. Tonight, they just needed this moment, this certainty that they belonged to each other. Brett Mitchell had learned something precious over the past 7 months. Accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Community isn't charity, it's family. And second chances aren't just about starting over, they're about starting better. He'd agreed to one last blind date when his world was falling apart. The woman who showed up that night didn't just change his life. She showed him it was worth living. And that, Brett thought as he stood with his wife and daughter under the Tennessee stars, was the greatest gift anyone had ever given him. The end was just the beginning. Their story would continue, filled with ordinary joys and inevitable challenges. But they'd face it together, surrounded by a community that had proven love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice to show up. Brett Mitchell had shown up. And everything had changed.